Hey there! Before we dive into today's episode, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. By subscribing, you're helping us spread the word and connect with more amazing people like you.
Welcome to webe Pärents, where parent doctors Matthew Lederman and Alona Pulde explore current parenting topics, share stories, and help bring families closer together.
Hi, I'm Dr. Alona Pulde.
And I'm Dr. Matthew Lederman.
Welcome to webe Pärents, where we are parent doctors exploring current parenting topics, sharing stories, and helping to bring families closer together. Today, our overarching theme is dependence versus independence. How we manage and how we cope, and whether the strategies that we're choosing are encouraging dependence or they're encouraging independence. And dependence is using a crutch, using a medication, relying on a tool or a device or a medicine or a something in order to get your outcome. And then the independence is learning how to create behavioral strategies that help you cope outside of that, right?
So for example, like if you're scared, can we help address the fear, or do we numb out the fear response with something like Valium or Ativan, right? One can cope with the fear and maybe it temporarily provide relief, and that's helpful, but can we actually help the person experience safety so the fear isn't even coming up in the first place?
We're going to start with some headlines and heartlines around this topic. This is where we play with ideas, answer burning questions, tackle some current events, and find the balance between taking things seriously and keeping a sense of humor.
Headlines and heartlines.
So here are some of the stories that I came across. This one has to do with insomnia, where a parent recounted their struggle with getting their child to sleep through the night. After trying various bedtime routines and limiting screen time, they finally decided to try melatonin. They found that the melatonin helped their child fall asleep more easily and stay asleep longer. But the parents also expressed concern about their child potentially becoming dependent on melatonin for sleep and wondered if instead they should continue to try other methods like relaxation techniques.
So where are you on the pro-melatonin, anti-melatonin, neutral melatonin?
Yeah, I don't think I'm pro, anti, or neutral. Well, maybe that is neutral by default, but I think it really depends on the situation, but I'm always for trying other methods first before going to medication.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think before we take a pill or think that there's something we need to add, we want to check what's the root cause. Because if there's a melatonin deficiency, right, then melatonin might be something that makes a lot of sense to me if I can't determine what's causing a melatonin deficiency. But other than that, I'd love to explore other options first and then use that as a last resort.
Right. And it could be situational too, right? You could be traveling and maybe you're there for a week and you don't want to deal with lifestyle changes because that's going to take longer than the week, right? So you resort to a melatonin crutch and then you come home with an intention around focusing on lifestyle changes.
That's how I feel about melatonin for me. I think for the kids, the more melatonin, the better to get them
Especially
to sleep.
on those flights, right?
Yeah, I mean, I load them up, dose them up. A whole suitcase of melatonin, whatever it takes to put them out.
That is not
Actually,
true, by the way, everyone. But
well, growing up, my mom did not mess around with melatonin. It was Benadryl, the real big guns.
Oh, yeah.
And we thought that was normal to take Benadryl.
Yes, your mother does not mess around.
but she
big
had
guns or no guns,
She
right?
had 6 kids, so we were all out, sleeping. Everybody's like, "Why are your kids so good? They're so well behaved." They're
they're unconscious. That's why.
3 of us are drooling on the other 3. Benadryl is the way to go. But anyway, it's not about Benadryl. Melatonin. Here we go.
In all of those situations, it's really the risk-benefit ratio, right? Because these medications are not benign. And we can talk a little bit more about side effects or potential dependency. And they don't just cross over that bridge of insomnia or difficulty sleeping. Here's another story, for example, around...
Do you want to just list some of the melatonin side effects so that people, since you brought that up, like daytime drowsiness and sleep cycle disruption, mood changes. Some people can get headaches and dizziness, gastrointestinal and stomach discomfort. It can interact with other medications, and dependency. That's always a big one where you think you can't sleep without it.
Right. In fact, that's what these parents were worried about, is that their child would become dependent on melatonin for sleep. And, starting that off as a child, you also not only become dependent, but you build tolerance. And then there's a need for more or a higher dose, or a stronger medication over time.
Right. And I don't want people to think that we're anti or feel guilty about it, but also if there's another option, which is what we're going to talk about today, to consider, why not give that a try?
Right. If there's time and there's no urgency or emergency, yes, absolutely. So this is another story around constipation. And this kind of spans a variety of parenting forums. Many parents have shared their experiences with children struggling to go to the bathroom regularly and using things like Miralax for their children's constipation. One parent mentioned that after trying to increase their child's fiber intake and hydration without much success, they turned to Miralax, and then the parent expressed relief that the medication did work quickly and effectively, but they also worried about long-term use. They noted that while they would prefer to manage constipation through diet, it was difficult to maintain the necessary consistency with a picky eater. So they chose to use Miralax instead. And
the melatonin first so that you can get the food into them when they're picky eaters.
And then the Miralax later. But that's a consideration too, right? And that's something that needs to be addressed. Parents do have a need for ease. And sometimes to meet that need for ease, because you have a picky eater or it's difficult to maintain consistency around eating healthier foods and maintaining the hydration that you need. And some kids have functional constipation or stress around going to the bathroom in different situations. All that, the need for ease becomes that much greater. And then the desire for...
and for people to understand that one of the main causes of constipation is what you're eating. Mm-hmm. And it's not only just a lack of fiber, but some of the unhealthy foods themselves paralyze or slow the bowel down. Mm-hmm. So even if you throw fiber, but you're still eating those other foods, it might not work. So you could pour tons of fiber, and without removing those other foods and replacing them with healthier options, you don't fix the constipation. And then on top of that, stress and mobilization, when you're dysregulated, when your nervous system is in fight or flight and you're not relaxed and calm, your digestion shuts off because you're busy putting resources towards fighting the fight. You're not worried about digestion, so the peristalsis slows down, which is the waves of moving food from mouth to anus, right, to be able to get all this stuff out. And that when that slows down, you experience that as constipation. And it slows down when you're mobilized to fight threat, whether that's an actual tiger in the room or you're worried about a test or you're living in a very unstable environment at home, unpredictable. All of that can slow the gut down.
I'm going to share one more story, and then we'll move on to our next section. This one is about lactose intolerance, which is another really common thread among many parents who share. This particular share was by a mother who discovered that her child was lactose intolerant after having recurrent stomach aches. She initially tried to remove dairy from the diet, but her child missed their favorite foods like cheese and ice cream. So she started using Lactaid. So that allowed her child to enjoy dairy products without any discomfort. And the mother reflected on the convenience Lactaid offered, but also really wanted to work on gradually reducing the dairy in her child's diet for a longer-term solution that didn't require medication. So that's kind of the balance between what we just talked about, meeting your need for ease, but also having a long-term vision. So this mother, although she didn't maybe want to battle with her child taking dairy out completely because the child did miss certain foods, was committed to using the Lactaid short-term to help out as a crutch while she made slower, more gradual changes in the child's diet. So it doesn't have to be either or either. There's a continuum in between. for meeting a variety of needs in these situations.
And I think a common underlying theme here is that we're using, with good intention, melatonin or Miralax or Lactaid to try and address a problem, but it's more like coping with a problem. And what we want to do is try and get to the underlying root cause. And that's the same thing with sleep that we're going to talk about later, and regulation of the nervous system. If we can help people learn how to get to the root cause, and you don't need to take these additional pills and supplements and things like that, we just find that people are happier with that option if they know how to do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And all of those examples, in the insomnia example, it's, can you do the breathing techniques? Can you do regulation exercises before bed to help calm the body and get you to sleep? In the constipation one, can you change the diet, even if you transition the diet to bring in more of the healthier foods, take out more of the culprit foods, and allow for more regular bowel habits? And then the Lactaid one, just like the mom was trying to do, she's using that as a temporary solution with the intent of long-term changing the diet and getting rid of the medication or limiting its use in certain, in rare situations. And that doesn't just apply to other parents, it applied to us as well, right? Which is
topics and tools.
Jumping into our topic and tool. So the topic and tool is where we really dive into key parenting issues, examine their significance and the challenges they present. We'll then equip you with a practical tool to effectively address this in your everyday life. So how to make it possible in your own home. Let's get started. So again, the topic of today's conversation is, how often do we choose the convenience of medication versus the longer-term challenge of lifestyle changes? And I use the word challenge because when people think of lifestyle changes, they often think of the heavy lift that will bring into their life, the disruption and inconvenience that will cause, whether in compliance or buy-in from the family or time and effort.
The challenge is usually upfront investment for long-term ease and feeling better with healthy lifestyle changes, whereas medications, they are initially easy, but you pay for it long-term where the disease starts to get worse, or you don't feel as good, or the side effects kick in, or it's not as effective as you would think because the body just starts to change around the medication. So, for example, cholesterol pills make the cholesterol number look better, but they don't really stop all heart attacks and strokes and things like that. So, versus changing your diet and lifestyle has a huge impact, especially the diets and lifestyle that we teach. So, same thing with medications, whether it's a melatonin to sleep, or, you start to build a dependency on the melatonin and you start to need more, or it doesn't even work, or you do the challenging road of trying to shift your body from a mobilized state, making it hard to sleep, versus, then eventually becoming more relaxed. And I tell people the reason you don't sleep at night is if you're mobilized to fight a threat, whether it's you just got into a fight, you're scared to be home alone, or you're thinking about the day tomorrow and it's just overwhelming. All of those things are a threat to your nervous system as far as it's concerned, and it's going to mobilize. And when it's like that, it's not going to sleep. You're not supposed to rest if there's an imminent threat. So putting drugs into the system to try and overcome the mobilization is like being in a pit with a tiger and then giving them something to try and put them to bed and say, oh, that's what's going to fix the problem. It's not going to work. It's like turning the check engine light bulb and screwing it off and saying, oh, we're fine now. I don't see the bulb anymore. I don't see the check engine light anymore. That dependence may have short-term gratification and benefit, and even provide some immediate needed relief. But let's look at the long term as the real success and finish line.
And I'd like to just hone in on a point that you made that I want to reiterate, which is that a lot of times these medications are treating a symptom and not the underlying root cause. So the example of Miralax or melatonin, you become dependent on this thing. Your body starts, Miralax is a great example, your body starts losing that ability to go on its own. And when you stop taking the Miralax, now you have two challenges. One is overcoming the nutrition and lifestyle barrier to actually adopt healthier habits. And the second is overcoming the detrimental effects of having taken the Miralax for so long and what that does to your natural system, right? So the melatonin is the same. If you're not addressing the underlying mobilization and that stress and that inflammatory cascade that's happening in your body is continuing, now you not only have to address that as it's built up and you haven't been paying, you haven't been giving it attention, but now there's also a melatonin dependency and a withdrawal that you're going to have to face at that time, right? So it becomes an even greater challenge. So you're getting maybe immediate gratification, but on the other end of it, how many people with statins still have heart attacks and don't understand how my aunt is a great example, statin, blood pressure medication. And when you asked her, I don't have blood pressure issues. Of course you don't, because you're being you think you don't, because your blood pressure numbers are fine because of a medication.
If all you care about is the number,
right,
you might be led to believe you're doing fine.
Right. But with those medications, eating the foods that she was eating blocked her arteries regardless, and she had the heart attack, right? So you really want to see, what am I actually treating at the moment? And if you're just treating the symptoms, what is the harm that is being caused by not addressing the root issue?
Well, a lot of the clients we work with don't have a shared reality at first, right? They think that the diet they're eating is the normal diet, and then whatever happens to them is a genetic problem. So if they have heart disease, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, weight issues, that it's not a result of the food and lifestyle. So once we get on the same page that the food and lifestyle is the biggest factor and root cause, then all of a sudden they can say, okay, we're not addressing the root cause. We thought it was just a genetic issue and we had no other choice. But this is enlightening and empowering at the same time to learn this.
Right, that we have an opportunity to do it differently. One of the greatest opportunities I think that we have and that can really help navigate other situations is the opportunity to regulate our systems. Matt, I'm going to give you the forum to share your new favorite quote in the whole wide world.
This is a Viktor Frankl quote.
I hear this 10 times a day in our house as Matt is talking to either different clients or friends or family members. Guys, this is the best thing I came across.
I'm even teaching the kids to memorize it.
Yes.
Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our freedom and our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and happiness.
And I love that. The ability to pause in our lives and connect to our choice around a behavior strategy and so forth. So we really come into our power on how we are going to choose to navigate a situation. And I think for all of these underlying issues, that ability to tease out when I have time versus what is urgent and emergent. Because when you're facing a challenge, when you're facing your kid not being able to go to sleep, your kid not being able to go to the bathroom, you not feeling well, whatever that challenge is, it feels urgent. It feels emergent to fix it, to make it go away, to make it different. And sometimes in that urgency, we make these reflex choices that aren't in our best interest, not in the short term really, or in the long term. So that ability to take that pause, to take a moment, to connect to choice, to connect to power, and come from that space really does lead to that growth and happiness at the end of that beautiful quote.
I think of that space as a bridge, and it takes you from reacting to responding.
Mm-hmm.
And most people are stuck in reacting. And if you can just get your toe into that space.
Can you share with people what you're seeing as the difference between reacting and responding? Because for some people that might be synonymous.
Reacting is not having a thought. It's almost like a reflex.
Like an automatic behavior.
Right. And I have those all the time. Last night Jordan said, Dad, and just based on the tone, I had a story that I didn't realize I had, but I reacted to that story, which was she's yelling at me and telling me I'm doing something wrong. And then I had tone back with her. That was a reaction. And then when I was able to pause and start to get into the space, that's where the choice happens. And I said, I had a reaction there and I'd like to respond differently. And I said, I had some tone and I heard in your voice, then I had a story that you were mad and telling me I did something wrong. And that's when I was able to respond. And she said, thank you. And it's in that space that you can create connection.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you choose your response, there I did a little bit of growth and I definitely felt some happiness.
Yeah. And I bet she did too.
She did, actually.
Yeah.
She appreciated that.
It's interesting when you tell those stories, right? And you talk about the tone. I notice in myself, like I tense up hearing, there was tone. I'm imagining this, right? I'm visualizing this happen. And then when you share this beautiful opportunity to connect and do it differently, I notice that softness in my system. So I'm just listening to the story. So imagining how you both were experiencing it, it's really impactful and profound. That is kind of a really powerful opportunity for choosing dependence over independence.
That's where the tool that we created comes in. I'm excited to share the webe Calm device, which allows kids to gamify the process of breathing, and particularly the type of breathing that calms the nervous system and gets you from fight or flight into that state of safety, and tells the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, hey, everything's okay. We can rest. We can digest. We can heal. We don't need to fight any threats right now.
And we can take a minute to respond, to think about how we want to respond versus just reacting. And, there are many ways to achieve that regulation, right? People do meditation. People have breathing practices that they do. People listen to music. They take a walk outside. There are practices that people maintain. What we have found for children, but even I think sometimes for myself, I notice starting off with this device really helps to connect to how to breathe. It's almost like a teaching tool, right? Because I tell my children, calm down and breathe, and I hear, we're in a Lamaze class, and it's like, no, that's not what I need you to do. Or they're taking really deep inhalations and, a puff out. And through the gamification in this device, which is where they get to loft a ball, they're learning how their slow exhalation is what really they're feeling that relaxation response in their body. And they're connecting to, I take a breath, I release a slow exhalation, my body calms down. And through that, they learn what is the independent part of this piece, which is taking a webe breath.
And the goal is to tell the body and communicate with the body, hey, we're okay. We're safe. If we pour on medication, that's doing nothing to help the nervous system feel safe. It's masking it versus, hey, there's nothing to worry about right now. But just telling someone in their head to calm down or there's nothing to worry about doesn't work. It really needs to be a felt experience. We need to communicate with the autonomic nervous system, which does not sort of interact with our thoughts around calm down. It just doesn't work.
Right.
How many of you were told to calm down or yelled at to calm down? Right? Does it make us calm? No.
Who even knows what to do with that? Humble is the word of this. This podcast is sponsored by the word humble. But humble is a word that comes across again. Remember, we were talking to our mentor, and I remember saying, we tell the kids to relax, and she just looked at me and said, well, what does relax mean to them? Do they know how to relax? And I'm thinking, no, they obviously do not. So it's how helpful is it to say, calm down, relax, when you're not giving them a way to do that?
Right, it's not doable.
Right.
And that's a big piece of nonviolent communication, is making a request that's doable. And so often we'll look at each other and we'll say, well, that's not doable.
Right.
And then we're upset that it didn't happen.
Right. So relax, calm down. That's not doable. But hey, let's all take a webe breath. That now is doable. And not only is it doable, but there's an immediate felt sense around what you said, that notion of safety, that notion of space. And in that space, as Viktor Frankl said, is your opportunity to respond, not react. And in that opportunity to respond, not react, you can choose. You can be Kylie choosing, do I just do medication because that's what everybody's telling me and that's the easy, immediate gratification? Or do I consider this longer term, maybe a front load, more challenging, but over the course of time, less so, independent path of making nutrition and lifestyle changes? But you need that space in order to do that. Otherwise, the reflex is to take the quote-unquote easy path or the familiar path or the conventional path.
And the We Become device helps build that muscle to the point that eventually you don't need it. At first, you use it and you practice it. And even to this day, if I'm imagining I was on the top of this really high water slide and I was a little nervous myself, and I remember imagining taking a webe breath. I was with my daughter, and then she started taking it with me. But I was picturing the device. I was picturing me blowing through it and watching the ball go up, because the way the device works is it slows exhalation so that you can't exhale comfortably unless it's slower. And when you do exhale, it holds a ball up. And the goal is to hold the ball up for the number of seconds based on the number of years you are old, up to 10. So I would hold the ball for 10 seconds. I would hear some white noise that comes out of the device, and my exhalation would be slow. All of that triggers the parasympathetic nervous system to calm the body, and that's what I did. So it's really powerful when you have it, and then eventually you train yourself through using it to where you just can take webe breaths without it.
So what does that look like in no skills versus pro skills? And by that, we're really talking about how do you address the issue with or without connection or success skills?
Well, the no skills, you can come back to when I was a kid and there were 6 kids in a station wagon screaming, yelling, hitting each other, telling each other to stop touching us, don't touch me, don't touch you, don't touch them. And then eventually my mother would yell, she's had enough. And she would be holding the car with the steering wheel with one hand, looking forward, the other hand is coming back, swinging, we're all trying to avoid that hand. And she yells, everybody calm down, and all of us look at each other. We didn't really know what to do, but we knew what we shouldn't be doing, right? We knew to stop hitting each other, stop yelling, but it didn't help our bodies calm. In fact, we probably got more nervous because of the hand going flying. That is an example of no skills. And I'll do that too, right? I'll be driving, and if I am struggling, I will definitely yell, I have had enough. Everybody needs to lock it up, and do the same thing. So that's a no skill. Another no skill would be when we just say something like, just breathe. Like I'm taking a splinter out of Kylie's foot, and she is notoriously struggles with actually both pulling a tooth could be hanging by a thread where I sneeze and it'll fly off of her mouth, but she will scream like I'm doing open heart surgery without any type of anesthesia. And that's what she does with splinters too.
Oh, yeah. She sees the tweezers and they're screaming. They're nowhere near her and she's screaming.
She's screaming. So then
and then it comes out and she's still screaming, and then she opens her eyes and it's like, oh, it's out? Yes.
And I will notoriously yell, just breathe. Kylie. Or I'll ask her, what are you doing? Why are you so worked up? Like those are helpful questions too, right? Just breathe. None of that is helpful. That is an example of no
yes.
skills.
Oh, yes. I'm sitting here chuckling, remembering, my mother. I mean, she's like, she doesn't really curse. She's so agreeable, pretty gentle, doesn't really yell. But my brother and sister would raise that barometer because they'd walk out of their rooms, which were opposite each other, and all of a sudden you hear, "You shut up. No, you shut up. No, you shut up. No, you shut up." And that would just go on and on until my mother was so fed up. She'd walk to the bottom of the stairs and scream at the top of her lungs, "Both of you shut up." And that was her way of saying, calm down. But really, it's like, if we have no other tool, that's what we resort to, right? Or the Benadryl on the flight. You get knocked out because your parents don't want to deal with the yelling, the screaming, the don't touch me, don't touch me.
Yeah. How many years were we together before you pointed out that Benadryl is not a mandatory part of a plane ride?
Oh, yes. I remember we would get on a plane ride and Matt would have his Ativan, his Benadryl, and I'm like, what? We're on what?
I would offer it to everybody around me.
Yes.
Who wants to partake?
He definitely was generous in sharing.
Benadryl for all the people around me.
All right. So we have absolutely demonstrated those skills here. How about pro skills? What does that look like?
So we have this bracelet that says "We Be in It Together" that comes with the Webe Calm device.
Mm-hmm.
And me, pro skills would start with that, which is the intention of, hey, we want to work on achieving calm differently. We all feel better when our bodies feel calm and safe. And holding up the bracelet and making an agreement to check in with each other, me with my child, or even you and me, right, where we hold the bracelet up and say, hey, would a Webe breath feel comforting right now? So instead of feeling shaming or angry, you offer it as an encouraging sort of support. And I find that's a game changer. Whether you have the device and you're practicing and saying, hey, would you like to practice the device before bed? Would you like to practice, it's bedtime, let's do 5 Webe breaths together and we'll both use our device. Or once you really have ingrained the skill, to just randomly use it when you need it.
Right. I love that. I love setting the intention. And, pro skills, like I said, can look like a variety of different things. Some people already have their practices in place, whether that's yoga or meditation, taking a walk outside, doing an activity that's quiet and allows for mindfulness, already have a breathing practice in place. But for those of you who don't, or those of you who want to get your kids on board and make it a gamified, fun approach, the Webe Calm is something to absolutely consider. One, because it sets that incredible intention with the bracelets, just wearing that, seeing that, knowing we're in it together and we're committed to showing up differently. And then also having the device, which is fun for kids. They really like playing with lofting that ball. But in that, they're really learning how to empower themselves to regulate their systems. And like you said, eventually not need any device, but have that innate tool now to know how to support their breathing and regulation practice. So, Matt, how do we bring it home? How do we integrate this into everybody's family life?
I like introducing the Webe Calm device as this tool that, hey, we got this really cool thing that can help us calm our bodies and invite the entire family to collaborate. Right? So I need it. There's times where I'm all worked up and I could really use help. And maybe you'll notice that, even if it's the kid, saying, hey, if you notice me worked up, can you please let me know? Hold your bracelet up. Just ask me if I would enjoy a Webe breath. Let's use the Webe Calm together, and inviting them. Say, hey, would you be interested in trying this? Let's do an experiment this week and see how that works for all of us. And then model it, right? Show them how you're using it. Say, oh, guys, I came home from work and my head is just killing me and I think I'm going to do 5 Webe breaths. Does anybody want to join me? If not, I'm going to be over here. And you can show yourself using it and announcing it and then encouraging it, right? Not just for yourself, but for them. Hey, it's bedtime. And I find that I sleep better when my body feels calm. It's very hard for your body to fall asleep. And who likes tossing around and worrying, in the dark, when you can feel really safe by taking some Webe breaths. So let's all use our device before bed and see how that works. And you can also, it's important to practice it. I love setting times where we all go through and do it together. You can find some kids like to do it before homework. Some kids like to do it when they wake up, others before bed. But right before we have a tough conversation, that's a really good time. And then my favorite is to fire drill, where you pretend that you're upset and ask your child, "Where's my webe come device? I am so upset." So you so rather than waiting till you're upset, where it might be harder to think about this, sort of pepper in sometimes where you pretend you're upset and say, "I am so upset right now. What would calm me down? I don't even know how to calm down. Does anybody have any ideas what would calm me down?" And you start to help them make those neural connections of, "Oh, Dad, would you like to try the webe?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's a great idea. Let's give that a shot," right? Or help them, saying, "Hey, you look like you're a little worked up now. Am I reading that correctly? Would it be enjoyable?" So it's not shaming them. It's, "Hey, would that be enjoyable?" Let them check in. And then when they're using it, you can say, "Hey, can you tell me when you use it? Because I want to celebrate that you're thinking about it, and I'll tell you when I'm using it so you can give me a high five. But when you're using it, can you come and say, 'Hey, Dad, I used the webe and I can high five you and celebrate,' because we're all trying to learn this new skill and heal our bodies and help us feel more calm. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful thing and a wonderful cause for celebration."
I love that because you're setting the encouragement is to set the intention around empowerment, not punishment. So you're not using the webe when somebody has behaved badly or poorly as a punishment. Now you calm down using that. You're allowing them to empower themselves in a variety of situations, from sleep to stress to challenging conversations to before a test, before our girls love theater. So before they go on to a show, taking their webe breath, and it becomes a strategy that they enjoy using to really help regulate and calm their body down. And that's the immediate gratification, is that getting to that space of safety and regulation feels so welcoming. So often we're in a mobilized state, that automatic autonomic reflex. We don't notice how tense that choice really makes us feel.
And you can even ask the kids afterwards, say, "Hey, do you notice a difference in how your body feels after you do this?" And usually they'll say, "Yeah, I feel better, Dad. This is great."
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And actually I love that you said that, because what I remembered was also our kids we did not just the webe, but if you go on to webepärents.com, there are resources. One of the resources is called a check-in meter, and we used the check-in meter with our children, where they would, before they took a webe breath or practiced with the webe, they would identify on this barometer where they were in their stress level. 1 being very calm, 10 being like super buzzed and stressed out and highly mobilized. And they would identify their number. They'd take their webe breaths, and then after their webe breaths would check the check-in meter again to see where they fell at that time. So they're getting a felt sense. They're seeing on this sheet that there is actually an impact, and all of that is an embedded response now to a mobilized state.
Yeah. And to me, one of the really exciting things about this is that you can transform a moment that typically degrades into disconnection into an opportunity for connection. So when a kid's worked up and they don't like how they feel in their body any more than you like how it sounds and how you're experiencing them when they're in that state. So if you, instead of shaming them, "What's wrong? Why can't you sit still? Calm down. Stop fidgeting." Instead of doing that, you can now say, "Hey, you feeling a little uncomfortable in your body? Would you enjoy some webe breaths or to use your webe device?" And then you bring yourself closer together instead of pushing you apart.
I love that. Taking us into our next section of Cheers and Tears. And in Cheers and Tears, we take a moment to celebrate our successes and acknowledge our struggles. We'll share something that went really well and something that didn't go quite as planned.
Cheers and Tears.
Cheers and Tears today is something that really was quite a tear in our family and in my heart. Kylie, our oldest, was diagnosed with Crohn's last year, And Crohn's is an inflammatory bowel disease, an autoimmune condition that impacts the small and large intestine.
And she's given us permission to talk about this.
Yes.
But it's where the immune system starts attacking your gastrointestinal system.
Right. And for us, that was extremely humbling because we teach nutrition and lifestyle medicine. We live nutrition and lifestyle medicine. And we still had a daughter who, over time, really became a junk food vegan. And there was a lot of reflection upon learning about her diagnosis, which, again, humbling is the word that continues to come to mind. But just that notion of my need for ease, her need for acceptance, and those together really allowed for so much of a greater lax approach to her diet so that she remained vegan and plant-based, but it was not whole food plant-based. She wanted lunches like her friends or other classmates. So I didn't want her to have Cheez-Its. She had vegan Cheez-It. Nachos, she had baked potato chips or tortilla chips or candy or, who knows what it was. And
that's a perfect example of she ate some healthy whole plant foods, but she also ate a bunch of vegan junk foods.
Yes.
And it's not enough to just add a little bit of whole plant foods. You also have to eliminate the processed foods, the added oils, all the added sugars, and really keep that to a minimum if you can't eliminate it altogether.
Right. And when she got the diagnosis, one of the fears that I had was because she really enjoyed her junk food veganness, I thought, oh man, she is not going to want to change her approach. And what does that mean? That means medication to manage this condition.
Which is manage, I use that term loosely, right? It's really to cope with the symptoms, but you're basically blocking the immune system from attacking the intestine, which has adverse effects. When you block the immune system, you're messing with the whole body there. So it's not that we're against doing that, but our goal is for that to be the last resort. But we weren't sure what Kylie would want to do, and we weren't going to, you can't power over food. We can't stuff the food down her face.
And we can't prevent her from not sneaking it when we're not seeing. That could be, she'll eat whole plant-based foods at home and then go and eat her friends' lunches at school.
And
right?
We have a lot of experience with whole plant food diets treating autoimmune diseases very effectively. And the rate-limiting step is, will people eat that food? Can you make it enjoyable enough that they can sustain that long term? In fact, even the children's hospital she went to said that there's data showing that the diet works, and the problem is compliance with the diet, not the diet being ineffective.
Right.
So we took Kylie to the hospital to get her colonoscopy, and lucky for us, maybe it was divine intervention, but on the TV over and over again, they were showing a commercial for one of the drugs that actually treats Crohn's disease. And by the third time I heard the commercial, I told Kylie, listen to the guy when he talks really fast towards the end of the commercial. And I said, pay attention. And she listened, and she actually got, because we sat there for so long, she got to hear the commercial a couple of times over a period. I don't know, but she said, oh my God, Dad, did he say death in there? She's scared of taking a splinter out. So if there's the chance that anything is going to hurt, let alone kill her, she's like, I'll choose option B. And that's what she says. Dad, I'll try the diet. And she's not looked back since.
Yeah, but the key is, and this is the cheers, is she's not eating rabbit food, right? We sat as a family and we figured out, if she's going to be on this Crohn's diet, and there are parameters around that. How do we make some of her favorite foods, her burgers, her burritos, her cupcakes, her ice cream,
her brownies,
right, in a way that supports her diet? And we have found so many different ways to do that it's boggled my mind and hers too, because she does not feel deprived.
And the one thing she says is that, Dad, if I knew that I could eat this food and it would taste this good, I would have done this from the start so that I didn't even have to worry about Crohn's disease coming back. She goes, now I sort of feel like I have to eat this way or it's gonna come back, which is usually the case. But she's basically said, I could have done this before. And that's what's exciting. And we all, express our regret. And knowing what we know now, we might have done things differently in the past. But it's just a testament to how much she enjoys the food.
Yes. Well, it's a testament, I think, to two things. And that whole notion of dependence versus independence, right, which we are going back to, is Kylie chose an independence path, right, which is a path that empowers her to now make choices that are going to support her health without a dependence on a medication or a dependence on a device or a dependence on really anything. She can eat almost anywhere. She can eat a variety of foods, and foods that are comfort foods, foods that are delicious, foods that are nutritious. And in fact, foods that when she shares with her friends are excited to eat as well and don't believe that this child is salt, oil, sugar, and gluten-free. And these are the foods that she gets to eat.
Right, because she'll do popcorn at the movies. She'll do, a Ben & Jerry's like type of ice cream.
Right, made of bananas and a fudge that we make at home, or, and chocolate cupcakes.
Chocolate cupcakes. She gets to eat all these different foods, pastas, on the cruise ship, and
burritos and burgers,
sandwiches,
and baked fries and sandwiches, and it's really limitless and regularly cool to see.
And it did take you a little bit of time to really learn how to work within the limitations. But now that you've got it, it seems like it's on autopilot.
Well, and I've been blessed. I'm not doing that on my own. There are, so many different sites that I have used and relied on and that have saved our family, and if I can give shout outs to them, there's Lisa Rice Lifestyle, there's Feasting on Fruit, which has some of the most incredible fruit-sweetened desserts that are, it boggles your mind how healthy it can be while still being delicious. Lisa Rice Lifestyle, comfort foods that are whole food, plant-based, and will blow your mind. And Forks Over Knives, which has, you name it and you'll find a recipe for it. So, just really incredible resources that we've been blessed to find.
And we should also give a shout out to Mom here, who doesn't stop and does whatever it takes to help her daughter be healthy. And I'm very thankful for that because I get to see Kylie heal, and Alona does so much to make that happen. So thank you to you as well.
Oh, well, thank you for that. Yeah, it's wonderful to see her thriving as she is. It's a huge cheers in my heart as well.
So a good example of like Alona, it'll take me as long to pack for myself, and Alona has packed for her and 2 children. Or we're going out to like a park, and I'm ready at 9:00, and at like 8:58 I get all my stuff done, and I'm like, Alona, what do we need help with? And we're supposed to leave at 9. And Alona has not only done it for herself, but the kids and the food and everybody. So I think, just a shout out to moms, and especially you, Alona, who just, it's a lot, and you make it happen.
Oh, thank you. Kudos to moms and to dads. Yay. Before we go, we usually like to leave our audience and often ourselves with one last thing, a key takeaway or an inspirational message to take with us. And today that would be true independence lies in the choices we make. We have the power to address the root cause or simply mask the symptom. The choice is ours. What brings real satisfaction isn't just immediate relief, but the long-term thriving that comes from choosing lasting well-being.
I love it. Well, we'd love to hear from everybody. So please email us at parents@webetogether.com with your own cheers and tears, as well as any questions or stories you'd like to share. Your experiences and feedback are invaluable to us. Thanks again for joining us today, and we look forward to connecting with you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the Webe Parents podcast. To hear what else Doctors Matt and Alona are up to, visit us at webeparents.com. Remember to try something you learned today. It just might be the first step in a new relationship with your kid.
Hey there, parents. We hope you're enjoying our podcast. We'd love to hear from you about what you like and what you want to hear more of. So please take a moment to give us a rating and review. That not only helps us improve, but also helps other parents find us. The more ratings we receive, the more people will hear about this podcast. Thank you for your support and for being part of our community.